The wounded inner child. I talk about this a lot because it's something that I'm really passionate about. Obviously, I am a healed, wounded child, but there's things that I want to share to make sure that if you are living as a wounded child, that you will understand that it's not your fault. There's not anything wrong with you. Because that's the problem, is people who are wounded children or have a wounded inner child, they will have poor self-esteem, they'll have poor self-worth, they won't think that they're good enough, something's wrong with them, they'll never be good enough, things like that. They'll have different types of fears of abandonment, fears of not fitting in, fear of not being good enough and not ever being able to achieve anything great. And what happens is, you may know that something happened in your childhood that, hurt you, but you may not connect the dots and realize that what you're dealing with is a wounded inner child. It's not like you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, well, you have a wounded inner child and you need to fix that. Doctors are not, privy to this. They don't consider these things. And then, you're prescribed medication because you're depressed and you don't think you're good enough. And it's a vicious cycle. Now, that's why I want to explain it as many times, as many ways as I can, because if I can reach somebody who is in that situation, they can fix it and not have to take medication. It's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be. But the problem is that your fixed mindset is telling you that you're messed up, that you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough. You may have anxiety, you may have depression, because of these inner beliefs about yourself that are part of the inner child that's not fixed and healed. And that's why I talk about it a lot. Because I went through that. I mean, for years, I was told I was adopted when I was 3 years old. So that set the stage for me to be, have the wounded inner child. And then I had, things subsequently that happened because I was adopted by people who weren't really ready or able to have another child that was not their biological child. So I paid for that. But I always thought it was me. There was something wrong with me. And because I'm quote unquote kind of different, it just manifested into this ugly wound inside of me that no matter what I achieved, no matter what I proved to myself, I still was not good enough. Until the light bulb went on and I'm like, I need to fix this. I need to try to fix this. And that's how I ended up healing my inner child. But if you don't realize what's happening is you have these bad feelings about yourself, you're miserable, you're unhappy, nothing ever feels right, nothing ever feels good, it may be that you have a wounded inner child. And that's why I talk about it a lot. And I mean, honestly, I'm sure that there's a lot out there. I really do, because it's so easy for it to happen, and I understand it's so easy for it to happen. It doesn't mean necessarily that you were, abused or neglected. It doesn't mean that at all. It could be as simple as an interpretation when you were a child, because children can't rationalize certain things and they interpret them differently. They misconstrue a lot of things, and that sets the stage for a wounded inner child. And I think about the people who may be out there who are depressed and feel bad and they're medicated because they've been diagnosed with depression, but it may be that they're really dealing with a wounded inner child that is pretty easy to fix. And it's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be. And that's what I share so much about the wounded inner child and how important it is to heal that. Because if you are living as a wounded child, or you have a wounded inner child that you're dealing with, it's not ever going to change until you change it. But it's not that difficult. So that's why I share so much about the inner child and the wounded child, because it's a very real thing, and it does not need to be a life sentence. So if you have some of the, hallmark signs, which I have on this video, it's something to explore. The problem is you can't go to the doctor and say, hey, I think I have this. It doesn't work that way. There are certain therapists and psychiatrists who deal with family unit stuff that may be able to quote unquote diagnose you, but deep down you probably already know. But you're not connecting the dots that this is why you feel crappy all the time and bad about yourself. It's because that's your core belief about yourself, and that's what happens when the inner child is wounded, is poor self-portrait. So anyway, think about it, and if this kind of hits you in some way, it's definitely worth exploring, because like I said, it's a relatively easy fix. In comparison to, taking medication for the rest of your life, or living, under a false label for the rest of your life and believing it's one thing when it's really another. Anyway, check it out and explore it if you are kind of on the fence and wondering if you are a wounded child. You just may be. And like I said, it doesn't mean that you were abused or neglected or, had horrible parents. That's not what it means. For different people, it's came from a different place, and there's it's pretty easy for it to happen, and that's what's kind of scary about it, and that's why I think there's a lot more of us walking around than what we even know. So stop feeling bad about yourself and start exploring other alternatives that may be the root cause of the problem, because if you don't fix the root, it's never really going to go away. It's not going to get better. And I want you to get better. I want you to be the best version of yourself. And if you are a wounded child, if you have a wounded inner child in you, it's not that difficult to fix. And you can be great. So that's why I share so much about it. That's why I talk about it a lot, because it's really important to me. I lived it. I lived it for a long time, decades. It took me to figure out what was wrong with me.